Thank you. I appreciate that. We're going to talk about innovation, and I think if you've had any conversations while you've been here at this fabulous conference, you've probably heard a ton of great ideas, right? Just at dinner last night, I was taking notes on all the great ideas that I heard from people. But I think great ideas are not necessarily innovation, right? So I think there's a little bit of a difference there, and we're not going to quibble on semantics here. But what we mean by innovation, I think, is more about erasing pain, removing barriers, creating opportunity. And so we've got these fabulous 4 panelists, all of whom are running companies that are doing something innovative in our space. And we're going to give them 5 minutes each to introduce what they do. And I'm going to keep them honest to 5 minutes each. And of course, they're not going to force me to ping them. They're going to respect the 5-minute timeline. And then we're going to talk about innovation. And I'm going to come out and hang out with you guys while we talk about it so that you can all participate, because I think you're probably all doing some things. Plus, you have pain, and you need to create opportunity in your own organizations. And I'd like to kind of have us all be talking about where we'd like to see innovation come in future. So that's what we're going to do for the next 45 minutes. So I think we will get started. You guys can introduce yourselves as we go, but the slides are running with Eric Kirby, with Connection Engine first.
Good morning, everybody. So I'm Eric Kirby. I'm the CEO and founder of Connection Engine. And I am a big fan of email innovation. This is actually the 3rd email-related company that I've been a co-founder of, including ReturnPath. So this is a topic that is very near and dear to me. And my company is about 18 months old. We've had product in the market for about the past 12 months. And in looking at the attendee list here, about 20 of the people in this audience are actually either clients or partners of ours. So appreciate you kind of getting on board this email innovation train with us. So what is it that we do? What is the problem that we sort of saw in the marketplace? What was that pain point that we thought there was an opportunity to innovate around? The key theme was that customer insights drive marketing results. And that's a theme here at this conference. It's probably a theme in all of your roles at your companies. Your ability to better understand your customers, use that information to intelligently segment those customers, be more relevant, and so forth, is a big part of what we all try to do. And that's the theory that I think a lot of what we do buy into. But that theory, putting it into practice, is oftentimes where things, where problems occur, right? So the actual act of bringing together data, connecting that information, analyzing that information, and then figuring out what to do with it ends up being complicated, expensive, time-consuming. At least historically it has been. So we really wanted to address this issue head-on and essentially stop people from biting their computers here and make it simple, make it actionable. How can we sort of rethink this opportunity to easily derive customer insights and then act upon those? And so that's really the area of innovation that we've focused on. And the approach that we've taken is that we've built capabilities, tool sets, and data layers that take a lot of that heavy lifting involved in bringing together customer data. We manage that in our own cloud-based environment. We allow any client to tap into that information based upon simply email address hash keys. So anonymous keys that can map into that data layer, in real time bring that data together, create a set of rich reports, analysis, models off of that data, and literally where in real time you can upload a file of email keys and be viewing these types of reports and information and drilling into it. And then importantly, to give clients the ability to act upon that data. So how do you now that you have access to this information, how do you apply it to your email programs, right? And so we wanted to take that process that, as you heard from some of the case studies yesterday, can often be a multi-year journey and make it something that can be done in hours, days, weeks in comparison. And some of those applications involve segmenting your customer file based upon things like customer value, product category propensities, and so forth, as well as applying this information to help acquire new customers and new subscribers. And as a quick example of an application of this, one of our clients is a very large online retailer. They have a large and rapidly growing email file. And with these new customers that come on a file every day, it's important to them to understand what is the quality of that new subscriber, what is the value potential of that new subscriber. Because as in many companies, a very small percentage of their customers drive a disproportionate amount of their business. So if they can identify those high-value customers immediately at the point of sign-up, then they can intelligently communicate with and target that set in a different way compared to the average subscriber. And so by applying this data, by applying these models in real time at the point of customer sign-up, they can differentiate those high-value customers that are going to go on to be worth 6 times more, for example, than the customers that fall into that low-value segment. So that, in a nutshell, is what we do, and I will...
That's great. So Eric, thank you. So data, right? So we all have lots and lots of data. How do we make sense of that data? How do we act on that data, right? So those are things. And one of the things I love about what Eric and Connection Action are doing is helping us also make decisions about which data we don't want to use, right? So we have to set priorities. And I think some of the analysis that he's able to do helps us decide which data is more important than other data. So our next innovator is Eric Didier with Evidence. Did I say that remotely correctly?
That's good.
Great.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. Hello.
It's Paris
Thank you.
calling.
Paris. I'm French, but I live in the US. And at Evidence, we just deal with a strange world, which is the standalone acquisition email, which is a very gray area, as I'm sure you all know. The laws in Europe are completely different from the US laws. You've got the can spam here, where you need to get an unsub link to unsubscribe from the brand. In Europe, you need to unsubscribe from the list that collected your email. Whatever the laws, it doesn't work, which means that what most of the end user call spam, which is acquisition email, we just see more and more it doesn't work. There is a lack of efficiency, and honestly, most of the end users are really boring by all these techniques. Despite that, we decided to create something a little bit strange, which means to completely change the rules. Rather than dropping more and more, we decided to make a technology to drop as little mail as possible. It was strange to us when we created this company 2 years ago that on the search world, on the display world, there are a lot of technologies, a lot of APIs, a lot of retargeting technology. You've got a lot of engineers that has been building great stuff over the last 10, 12 years. In the email world, it still works like it used to work for the acquisition email works. It still works that it used to work 10, 12 years ago. You are looking for a list manager or a list owner. You try to negotiate a price, which is CPM, CPC, CPA. You ask them to drop the email, and as a result, you just get an Excel file. The Excel file tells you what the vendor wants you to know, but there is no centralized place where you really know the truth. There is no transparency, and you know nothing about the efficiency on your acquisition campaign. So we decided to make exactly what happened in the search and in the display. We have built an automated platform, a little bit like the Google AdSense one, where any list owner can upload their list and decide on how they are going to handle it, to decide on the frequency, to decide on a lot of things. And on the other hand, any advertiser can decide on its own rules to drop a campaign, even the business model, CPA, CPL, whatever, and the cost. And then the platform is going to do everything by itself. It's going to have a behavioral targeting to understand how the campaign performs. It's not going to drop blast of email, but just learning how each end user behave with something like 22 data points. And we are just going to run the campaign as we would do that on an AdWords campaign or an AdSense campaign. So we do handle the overall cycle, and it means that the results are pretty amazing. It's perhaps a little bit small, but you've got a snapshot of our dashboard in terms of open rate and eCPM for acquisition campaign. The open rate on acquisition is between 10 and up to 20%, which is amazing for an acquisition email campaign. The eCPM in the US is roughly around $4 for a branch of campaign, and because it acts as a bid mechanism, we always get the best campaign first. And because it's all about transparency, we provide for both sides all what you need to know as a list owner to be sure there is no fatigue, that it's really that you do respect your end users, and for the advertiser, all the statistics, even behavioral statistics, to understand who perform well on your campaign. So we hope we are changing the rules of our goal being to decrease the volume of spam and get back to something that should be the case or should have been the case over the last 10 years. Thank you.
Very nice, Eric. Thank you. Has anybody tried, you know, in the last 2-3 years to do list rental and been disappointed in the results? Anybody do that? I see a lot of hands, right? So innovation in this area would be a good thing, right? So breaking the old models that didn't quite seem to work and weren't really applicable to the email industry, and then you know, trying something different. So I think that's great. And I know there's some other folks in the room who are also doing innovative things with acquisition mail, and we'll hear from those guys as we do the audience participation. So Dave Hendricks, who has been, you know, tweeting from the stage, he's so hip and cool. You're next. What do you got, man?
Don't be mean.
I'm not being mean. I'm being supportive.
I was looking for
What do you
Della.
got?
Where's Della? Where did he go? Could someone go get Della for me? Is he out there? Is he out in the lobby? He's on a conference call? Oh my, I can't believe this. I had all this stuff prepared for Della. You know, because I totally disagree with everything that Eric just said.
Let me help you.
Could you hold this?
Yes, I can.
This is for Della, okay? Here, okay? Right here, mail more, okay? This is an old shirt from an old company that doesn't exist anymore. So yeah, hold that for me, please. So my name's Dave. Hi, everybody. It's really great to be here. And innovation. When Stephanie asked for me to join the panel, I was excited and everything. But really, I don't think we're doing anything very innovative. We put ads into email messages that publishers send. It's the same thing that you see in a magazine or on a TV show or in a newspaper. The fact that it hasn't been able to be done in email is actually a really big surprise, but it was really hard to do. The craziest thing about email, especially for publishers, is that they have no way to make money sending email. Half of this audience here are ESPs and other folks, and they've served this one group called retailers, and retailers get like 40 times ROI or something like that for all their messages. But what happened to the publisher? The publisher kind of got stiffed in all of this. And the funniest thing is the publisher should be your best client because they're trying to put something fresh and new in front of people all the time. But the problem is for ESPs that you're completely out of alignment with everything that a publisher stands for. Because every time that you send a mail for them, they lose money. And so that sucks for publishers, which means they don't acquire more customers. It means they don't grow their list. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to change what's been happening in email and give publishers a chance to level the playing field. And there's a lot of implications here for retailers as well. But the problem is that publishers don't want to send email because they lose money. So what we've done is we've given them a very, very simple technology that they can just snap into their email programs. It takes a couple hours to implement. And then after that, they can run display ads in their email newsletters. And that means that every time that someone opens up an email, they can make money. They can either make money from seeing an ad or clicking on an ad, or they can click through to the website. Because if you're not sure how publishers make money with display ads, whether those ads are in newsletters or whether they're in the website. And so what we've done is we've decided to bring the revenue one click closer and put newsletter ads in. And so what this does is this means that now publishers, every time they send mail, can make money. Now this is really good for you people. By the way, I don't compete with anybody here. I don't even compete with Eric. Although he says to send less, and I think you should send more, especially if you make money every time you send. Because to what Alec and everybody else was talking about in the last panel, everyone's opening their email obsessively now. The mobile device is like an ADD kind of like OCD device now. And everyone's opening up all their email. So you better prepare to see a lot more opens. And we're seeing 20% of those happen in mobile, at least. And in some populations, it's more like 50%. So if you're not making a mobile-ready experience, great. And segmenting, by the way, some folks were asking about segmenting for mobile. Don't segment for mobile. what you should do is you should use real-time technologies to sense what someone's doing. Don't try to predict what people do, because just like Justine, they're sitting with 3 devices next to their computer all the time, and they have a choice of what to open their email on. So what Live Intent does is we have a technology, it puts an ad tag into an email. When the user opens, we sense the location, the device, the newsletter they're in, what time it is, and then our engine serves up an ad that's appropriate for that context. You can use it for acquisition. It's a great way to help your publishers pay for their email programs. It means you can send more email for them. It means they can grow their email programs, send more mail. Everyone's happy. And by the way, we work with Eric Kirby's company. It's a fantastic company, Connection Engine, and really cool. And using data in real time together is a secret to the future success. Plus mobile. Okay, I'm done. Bye.
Good job, Dave. You're like 30 seconds by your limit, so you did a good job. And I think also, you know, despite the fact that that Tom Hanks picture looks a little bit like Morgan. Did anybody notice that? The early Tom Hanks was aspiring to be a Morgan. Do you really? Okay. It struck me a little bit because you're right there and then you were right there. But I think what Dave's also doing is creating this real win-win-win situation, right? So as publishers earn more money from creating relevant experiences, they can have more relevant advertising, give advertisers more data, and then of course consumers, recipients, and subscribers get stuff that's more interesting, right? So that's kind of good. So what Ken was talking earlier about, you know, what can we do to change the world? You know what I mean? Like, gee, you know, look at you every day, right? It's good. Our last panelist is Graham Yeaman with Style Campaign.
Hi, good morning. I'm Graham. I'm from Style Campaign. I'm the CTO and co-founder. We're a small creative agency based in LA, and the problem we perceive with email presently is that it lacks stickiness. Unlike other traditional marketing mediums, people tend to glance at emails, then dispose of them very quickly. So there's an enormous amount of competition in the inbox to try and grab people's attention. Sorry, I'm not speaking into this very clearly. And so we've been developing over the last couple of years a technology that it's called the dynamic image server. And basically what it can do is every time the recipient opens the email, we generate a new image on the fly based on the time of day, their location, the device that they're on, how many times they've opened the email, and any user information that might exist associated with the list as well. It's a proprietary server technology. It has practically no external dependencies, so you know it's very easy to integrate with your current list management and what's the term? Email service provider. That's the one, yeah. And so we've also implemented a sessions tracking system, and that means that we can effectively, instead of, you know, there's big talk at the moment about gamification of email. Well, we can actually put games in email, you know, simple games of random games of like say a dice game or a roulette game or a spin the wheel game, and that way you can offer prizes to people, you know, subscribers based on how many times they open the email, whether they get a certain random choice, you know. We've noticed that a lot of companies are producing apps right now that have a similar kind of functionality, which seems to be quite popular, whereby you say you go to a burger bar or somewhere like that, and they say sign in, and then you play this app and you may get a special discount on a meal or something like that. Well, we can actually put that kind of dynamic inside an email. I think that's about all I have to say.
That's great. Well, I think it's, you know, this is one of the things, thank you, Graham, this is one of the things that we've said all along that we want, right, is we want to take full advantage of the fact that email is asynchronous, but we also want it to be immediate and relevant and, you know, completely up to the minute. And so I think what Style Campaign is doing is allowing us to break that old restriction on email, which was that, you know, what I send when I send is what you get regardless of when you open. And so I think that's pretty cool. So do you have a question? Right in the back? Thanks, Bob. Oh, no microphones back there. Thanks, Bob.
Bradford Johnson, Overstock.com. We found using a system like was just described, a lot of people use email like a file folder. And so to change things constantly actually can worsen an experience for them, because people will go back to certain times of emails often, all the time, especially transactional emails such as delivery or confirmation emails. You'll find the highest open rate is going to be on a delivery confirmation email or a delivery notification, because they'll check that package all the time where it's tracking. And that's an actually really good email to go ahead and live update the content as they open it. But other things, certain kind of offers, you might not want to do that simply because it's a bookmark, it's a placeholder.
Yeah, that could be true. Graham, do you have any insight on what kinds of offers make the most sense for style campaign?
Well, one of the problems that people usually have is that emails tend to go stale. So if there's an offer, quite often you've no way of predicting when the recipient's actually going to open the email. And especially with flash sales, people can either open the email before the sale starts, and there's no clear indication of when the email starts, and we can give an actual, to the second, it's going to start in 1 hour, 15 minutes and 30 seconds, and then we can update the message while that offer is active and tell them that it's active now. You better go and capitalize on this deal. And then, but we can also subsequently serve up a message to when the offer becomes stale. So and you can offer a fallback offer, or information about future upcoming offers if you like. Yeah.
Great, Dave.
We actually, at Live Intent, we actually don't do anything dynamic after the initial open. We store and maintain the state on the message, because what we've found is that folks will open a message on their mobile device, and they'll say, wow, this is interesting, and then they'll forward it to either another email address, or they'll forward it to a spouse or a friend or somewhere else for other reading, whether it's their future reference or it's somebody else who's going to be interested in it. And if the message changed, that would screw up what got the person to take that action. So one of our innovations is actually what's called maintaining state, and having it being only dynamic on the initial ad call, and after that locking, because that initial decision was the correct decision for the time.
Great, good advice. Great question, Bradford. Thank you. Do you have a question here?
I have a question actually for Bradford. So you had mentioned you'd use dynamic image updating in your campaigns. I'm wondering if you could elaborate on that.
We've toyed around with it. We're still developing it, perfecting it. There's always a more pressing issue that comes along rather than dynamically updating content. The benefit for that, and I've seen, Home Depot does this very well. They time out they update the image of their coupons to say, sorry, you missed this, it's expired. And they update that in live time. The real benefit, I think, that comes from is the operational and the process, or the resource constraint. If you're piping in all kinds of recommendations and personalized data across to an email service provider and then delivering it, one, that content is perhaps days old, depending on when you ran your segmentation. And two, you are straining your tech systems amazingly. If you can actually make it so the call happens on the user side, it's delivered much faster, and you have, your IT team will love you, your database team will love you for not, early morning hours running your campaigns, putting a huge stress on the systems overall.
Yeah, good points, good points. Anything to add? Are you good there?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Bradford, thank you, because I think that kind of leads us into the next point that we wanted to talk about, which is all of this stuff sounds really, really cool, right? But I'm busy. I'm really busy. So what are some of the factors that we as innovators, of creators of innovation in terms of products and services, what needs to be true in order for us to be successful in encouraging somebody like Bradford to adopt our stuff? And Dave, I'm looking at you, so maybe you want to kick us off in terms of what are some of those success factors?
I think the first success factor is you have to have a real problem that is to solve, and that's what all innovations really drive from. If you've got a problem that is universal, big enough, and thorny enough, I'll tell you the big problem is segmenting and deciding what to send, what to show someone before you send something. you're always wrong, okay, when you segment before you mail and then you stick something in there and you send it to a group. One, it's the message is going to go to the wrong people. Your tech team will missegment it. The message is old. Someone forgets to put the right content in there, and it hits somebody on a mobile device when you thought they're going to be on a desktop, or they're in Paris when you thought they'd be in New York. The thing is, as soon as you try to predict what someone's going to do a long time before they do it, you're going to be wrong.
Yeah.
And so I think that you have to take a look at what your business problem is, and then the innovation is finding a solution that works for a lot of people.
Good, and I think, Eric Kirby, your innovation is awesome, but I could also see that being sort of a source of stress, right? Like, oh my God, I have all this great data. I now have to figure out what to do with it. So
yeah, and I think that as Dave was saying, one of the key factors is, is there a demonstrable problem that people haven't? Is there a headache that you can solve by selling aspirin? And have you invented sort of Tylenol when before? I don't know what the analogy is, but something like that, right? And so the further out you get in front of where people's perceived pains are, the more education it takes to the marketplace, and sort of the longer road you have to plan for to really get traction with the innovation. So depending on how forward-looking you are and how much you want to bet on the fact that people are going to recognize this pain, depends on how you think about innovating in the space. Do you want to innovate close in? Do you want to innovate far out? And there's sort of different profiles with both of those approaches.
And you could innovate far out with an application that addresses what's on my plate, right now, this day, this week, this month, kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
so,
and as you said, I mean, every single person in this room has entirely too much to do every day, and they have entirely too many people calling them every day, and probably everybody up on this panel among them, right? And so if you don't have something that very clearly has a distinct value proposition right now, such that it should be on my priority list, today, this week, this month, then it's really hard to get traction.
yeah.
Video and email was one of those problems which was really stupid to solve 10 years ago, because no one had fast enough connections, there wasn't enough material, you had like 50 different codecs, and no advertiser wanted to spend like hundreds of thousands of dollars to produce content that maybe no one would ever see. But that didn't stop people from creating like 3 or 4 really stupid video and email companies that which some of my friends founded, and they really got ahead of the curve, and the problem was there was no problem there. Okay,
Right.
no consumers were going, please send me video and email now, I need it. They didn't ask for it,
Right.
right?
It's being driven by the marketer's desire to take our assets and put them in every channel we could, right? So
Right.
it was being driven by the wrong thing.
But data-driven now, that's a good problem.
I also think that the problem comes from the innovators themselves. They think they've got a solution, they think they have a market, and they completely forget to listen to the end users.
Yeah.
If it takes 1 year to implement something where you're going to save few days of work, that's stupid. I did love the story of, I think it was Alex, who said that there were big innovation at RIM, at BlackBerry. We are going to make a browser that works, and they completely forgot to have the right behavior to be sure that you do not have to click 3 times to, yes, read the images. So it may be an internal innovation, but they completely forgot to listen to the end users.
Yeah. Now, when we were doing our prep session, Eric, you were talking about, you were talking about how innovation comes from different places, right? In terms of, disparate technologies and disruptive technologies and things like that. So you gave the steam engine story.
Yeah.
So when we talk about the future of innovation, where's this going to take us? Maybe you could share some of that with the audience.
It's a little bit of a European story because our trains are all electric. Yours not yet. But we went through the same path, which means we all had steam engines. And when you were discussing, I'm a little bit old, but I didn't know this period. But all the steam engine engineers was trying to improve again and again the steam engine, and some of this machine were outstanding, really great. And they all said electricity will never work, because they were always thinking from their own world, and without really having something disruptive. So when they invented something a little bit better to make the steam engine better, they completely forgot there may be something very disruptive. And that's the same in the innovation. Most of the innovation try today to improve a little bit our day-to-day task, and very large, very strong innovation come from the blue, from a real good ideas, and that's very tough to predict because they will come from whatever, teletransportation like in Star Trek or whatever. And in the email world, we are fine-tuning what we do, but there is no still big ideas. For example, I've got some concern on HTML5. My dream would be to get rid of HTML, which is the worst language that has never been invented, to have something that goes well, that could be compliant with all platforms, without to have hundreds of years of expertise to be able to drop the right email to the right person at the right time.
So there's two kinds of pain then, right? So I mean, in what you're saying is that, you know, there's kind of like this day-to-day pain, these acute pains that we have every day as we start to try to get our jobs done. And then there's also sort of like wishful thinking, right? There's like this big dream kind of
Absolutely, yeah.
Big dream kind of stuff. So I think we're gonna go out to the audience. I'm gonna come down there where you are, and I'm gonna ask Morgan, since he's holding the microphone, to kick us off and talk about what is the biggest and most acute pain for you on a day-to-day basis. And you represent your customers.
I think it's.
Yeah,
thanks for warning me on that one. You know, the thing that I see our clients struggling with is there's a constant tension, and this isn't necessarily an innovation aspect, but there's a constant tension between kind of what people know that they should be doing and the realities that drive the economics of their business. So we had this big debate about you know, inactives yesterday, and I find it really interesting that that conversation always gravitates towards retail, where it's really easy to measure, and we don't like to talk about it at all as it relates to publishers who they literally make money based on the size of their list, as arcane as that may be. It's just the reality. So that's where I tend to see pain is, and that's frankly where I tend to focus my time and attention with our clients, is trying to align what is the right thing with the internal economic drivers of a business, and that is not always simple, right? There's a lot of politicking and a lot of conversations that go along with that. So it's not as much of an innovation, although I am familiar and interact with a lot of the new innovations, and many of those represented here. My biggest pain, or the biggest pain I see, is one more of politics and navigating and trying to align those two disparate realities.
Yeah, there's that thing, you know, when we have to work with people, that creates such drama.
Yeah, yeah. If we could innovate a new solution to people, that would be really great. So.
They have opinions, I know. Do you have a big pain, Sylvia?
Many.
Say your company, I'm sorry.
Selling Source.
Great.
Yes, I actually email for the past 10 years, and now I'm on the other side trying to, because of the pain of everything that emailers go through, I'm helping Selling Source to work with the clients and from the perspective of an emailer. And I'm actually very interested with the publisher side. We always talk about big brands, and it's a lot easier for a big brand that is recognized and, you know, not a problem. Sometimes you sign up for Macy's or any of those brands. It's much easier, but I was very interested because of the innovation of publishers making money, and also brands that want to put their names out there, show people like this is what we do. How do you go about that?
So using email as a branding?
Yes,
tool, is that the
for
pain?
people, the small people, the new people that want to be out there, and that's why I was very interested in what you're saying about publishers can still make money.
Right.
So how many publishers are in the room, by the way? I mean, I think everyone probably considers them a publisher, but who's a pure publisher out there? Mm-hmm. Publishers come in all different stripes. You know, now we've got micro, blogging and people with 100-person audiences, and you've got people with 10 million people audiences, and those big companies have their own sales staff. But a small company doesn't have a sales staff. So how do they make money, okay? It's not like a retailer. A retailer is in business to sell stuff, right? So it's got its own material. It's going to tell you about its material. Publishers driving you to some content, okay? Whether they're big or small, they have the same goal. They want to drive you to content. So the problem is that small publishers haven't had the scale to go out and attract advertisers, because advertisers buy in M's. They don't buy in C's, okay? They buy in lots of M's. And so the challenge for publishers is, how do I sell into this, this resource? How do I sell into email? Because it's not like they have the shoes that they've got in the warehouse and they say, oh, I'm gonna take these shoes. And then how do they match that up with the audience? And the thing is today, between data and what we can learn with Signal when someone opens, you're able to figure out a lot about an audience member, besides the fact that they subscribe to your newsletter, just from their open behavior. And then you can take that open behavior and decide which ad to show. That can give you a way to make money. Now the question is, how do you attract the advertiser? And that's another thing. That's the business that we're in, is scaling advertisers across publishers. Yeah. And that's the innovation which we brought to the table, which was giving an advertiser to reach thousands of newsletters with a single I/O and a single click, okay, in real time, and then have publishers be able to attract ads, without having a sales force. But let me say one thing about innovation. Innovation is not about being cool. Okay, innovation is about utility. Just because something is cool doesn't make it innovative. What makes it innovative is that it's useful and applicable and generalizable, and that you can then solve a problem with it. And it's usually fairly mundane and boring. But utility is what makes it important.
But those mundane and boring things are the things that are the most acute pain sometimes, you know? Eric, Kirby, do you have any thoughts on branding, using the data that you guys have, using email for branding?
Well, I think part of the theme here, that I was picking up on in that comment and question, is actually an underlying, long-standing pain point in and around email, which is that email applied to new customer acquisition has always disappointed. I think, Stephanie, you asked a question earlier, or somebody recently did, about who's had good success with email list rental, and the answer was, well, not a lot of people, and that's why there are companies on this panel and other companies in the room here that are trying to innovate around that opportunity. And I think that underlying pain point is going to be one that's going to be, if anything, increasing in the months and years to come, in part because there is growing demand from those who have a direct mindset within marketing organizations that are looking for vehicles outside of direct mail now to acquire new customers. Direct mail is a huge new customer acquisition vehicle that companies have used very successfully for a long period of time, but it's continuing to have challenges. I mean, pick up the paper today and you'll see more stories about the post office closing, half their distribution centers or something, I think was an article today. So that demand for other viable customer acquisition vehicles, most of the conversations in this room take place around email once you've already engaged the customer, once there's already a relationship there. So I think that's sort of a key theme, and hopefully the people on this panel and others in the room and others in the industry can figure that out, because there's enormous pent-up pain around that, in my opinion.
And we have lots of customers, mostly B2B, who are using acquisition strategies that go from list rental to appending data to buying lists. I mean, and they track whether or not those people are more or less engaged than the people that they sign up through organic measures, right? And so, the gap is closing, I think. When we first started looking at that kind of data, there was a huge gap between the people who willingly came and signed up and gave you their email address, and then people who were sort of, tricked into it a little bit, right? But now that gap is closing a little bit. But I think you're right that this acquisition pain has been around forever, and it's been completely unsatisfying for all of us to have the answer be, grow your list organically. It's too slow, it's too hard. You know what I mean? So
I also think that a lot of marketers feel they depend too much on Google these days. They used to see the keywords as a small portion of their market, of their expenses, and now most of them, it's a huge amount. So any additional channel they may find is going to make them feel a little bit better, not to rely too much on one only big brand.
Right, that's a good point too. All right, so we're going to do Daryl first, and then Ken. So Daryl from HP? What's your big pain point?
So first of all, I'd like to thank MediaPost. I think all the speakers and so forth, whoever put the program on, did a brilliant job.
Morgan did it. Good job.
Morgan. I've missed this summit for the last 2 years, and coming back, the quality of the program is amazing. So. And I just want to say thank you for that. I think HP's a big company. We've stumbled a little bit lately, but we're back on track. So, I think our biggest area, as I look at email, managing that, is really integration with the other channels we've talked about, with the customer experience, with bringing data, really bringing that all together, and bringing the whole customer experience together, and really educating people across the board on the optimal experience that you can create. Because I think it's been mentioned, you know, everybody has to get the campaign out now, get it quickly, and they just want to get it out. Well, is it optimized for mobile? They say, I don't care, I just want to get it out. Or using the right data to segment it. And so I think the challenge, and then having the website ready so that if they click on the mobile email, that it's a mobile experience on the web. And I think that's the biggest challenge that we face, is really integrating all those channels and using the data appropriately, that we optimize that experience. Because I think we do great jobs in certain areas, but we let the customer experience down. And so any ideas on how you can do that or how you can get that across a large organization?
And when you talk about educating people, you mean your internal people?
The internal
Yeah.
marketing people, and
Yeah.
really focus on the customer, because oftentimes you're just internally driven by your campaigns and getting those out, and
Right.
you lose focus on the customer.
Well, a lot of times that education can be done by data, right? So I mean, that's one of the most convincing
Yeah, well, I
things.
mean, I think data is an enabler, but a lot of those issues are organizational, and also, I mean, there's big underlying challenges in organizing around that. And a lot of the one of the trends I think within the ESP is a lot of the sponsor banners around this room, right, is to expand their capability set to bring together more of these direct customer touch points into a single platform to enable the management of data within those platforms to be able to intelligently inform those channels and take something that typically stands today as a siloed approach within organizations and try to bring it into one platform. So I think there's a lot of innovation, if you will, a lot of convergence in the space and bringing those capabilities together. It's not quite there yet, but that is where everybody wants to go and has been trying to go to some extent for about the past decade. I think we are making progress, and I think that email actually is going to play an increasingly important sort of central role in all that. I mean, one of the themes playing out here, I think, is that the email address is becoming sort of the default customer identifier and linkage key for a lot of organizations. Historically, it's been name and address. I think that there's an argument to be made that going forward, email address is that unique customer identifier that everything else kind of links in with. So common challenge, a lot of companies working on it, not quite there yet.
Yeah, I have to add up to that. Email has the longest half-life of pretty much anything interactive that you have. Okay, so your home address, it changes every 2 years on average in the United States. Your attraction to a social network might last 2 or 3 years. What's the half-life of your email address? It's probably in 5, 6, 8 years. It's the #1 unique identifier, and it's the thing that you need to have for everything. And everything should key off of that. Yeah. I think that one of the answers is to take a look at display for you. You would never go 3 days before someone shows up at a website and try to guess which display ad you should show them. You're looking at that user when they show up on your website, and you're looking at their cookies, you're looking at their browser, you're looking at what kind of user agent, what kind of computer they're on. You're looking at all kinds of stuff, what's happened on your site, and then you're optimizing in real time. The problem with email is that you guys don't optimize in real time. Almost none of you. You guys optimize in the past. Okay, you're optimizing on something that happened and it's way past. It's like
3 or 4 days old.
Right. You ran that scroll over 3 miles ago. Okay, and you're not even thinking about it anymore. You should take some cues from display and start optimizing in real time. And I think Graham's more in that direction than anybody else besides us on the panel. And certainly using data like what Eric has is pretty key to optimizing in real time. I would do that.
We have one last question that will be with quick responses. So.
This is for all of you. A pain point for our clients is they have appointments with earnest people like you, innovators, every day, promising the next greatest necessary thing. So because you're innovators, because you have experience talking to people, how should we as decision makers make our decision as to which new, latest, greatest technology to go with or to pass on?
So the question is, how do I prioritize all the options for new technologies? Is that, which one do I pick?
I don't know if Google is still doing it, but they used to give 10% of their time to the employees to do whatever they want. It belongs to the company, but there are 10% of their time to create innovation. And if I recall correctly, that's how they invented Google Maps. And I'm sure that 80% of you are using Google Maps. So I think that's part of the job of somebody who's trying to make the things better in his company is to spend a decent amount of time in looking after what he should do next. So it takes time, you lose time, and after I think that's all based about trial and ROI. That's any software vendor is going to tell you that. But you should take a very sample of something, like you do in A/B testing. You take 10% of your traffic and try to see if it works. You should do that.
Sorry.
Ouch. I spoke too long?
Yes, you did. Hey, how about this? I have the answer for you.
Too long, but that wasn't us.
Yeah. Stop being a coward, okay? That's the first thing. You stop being a coward and go try stuff. Everyone here's too scared to try things. You know, what's going to happen? You're going to fail. Big deal. Go try something new. And if it doesn't work, try something else. But
if you get fired, you can always get a new job. I think that the I think the quick answer and the trend is to try the things that you can have an answer on and know if they work with a very small investment and in a very short period of time, as opposed to now committing to the 2-year-long, $10 million promise that I think companies have proven don't play out all that well, right? So what's the thing that you can know the answer to in a week for $1,000?
Graham?
I wouldn't. Sorry, hello. I wouldn't say try this or try that. I think everybody has something to contribute to the process. I don't think you can latch onto one specific technology and say that's going to solve all your problems. I think being able to manage and analyze your list so that you send out appropriate emails is important. Having dynamic content so that the email updates is important. But I think one thing people tend to get hung up with is the technicalities, and we forget that we're in the entertainment business, really. You know, you don't remember the M&M's ads because it told you it was a candy, you know? It was entertaining, engaged people, and that's the whole thrust of what we're trying to do, is we're trying to engage people, and yes, you want to grow your list size. I mean, one of the problems with email is I've seen websites go viral. I've never seen an email campaign go viral. You know? And if you wanted to grow your list, what would be better than to have a viral email?
I think Reed Hastings was pretty viral about a month or so ago.
Sorry, what was?
Reed Hastings, Netflix.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
So,
well, I missed.
I think we're at the end of our time, but I hope that we've been able to demonstrate that email innovation is alive and well, right? So that's really good. Please join me in thanking our panel, Eric, Dave, Eric, and Graham.